been tested in a while, but they sure were in Happy Valley tonight. And Michigan escapes with a 2-point victory to move to 14-0 on the season. No, it wasn't a blowout by 30 points. It was a 2-point game, and Michigan survives in Happy Valley, and they remain unbeaten. Woo! And if you were one that were telling people that, they're not going to you're just not going to cruise all the way to the national championship. They're not going undefeated. There's going to be nights where they get into foul trouble, or they're not shooting, or they're just in a funk, or the other team is lights out. There was a little bit, I don't know, Penn State wasn't really lights out, but there's a little bit of that dynamic tonight as you watch this game. And really right from the start, it was, you see a couple sloppy turnovers, and you hear Donnie Marshall, the color analyst, saying, Michigan's just in a little funk, or, and it just kind of stayed that way in the first half, even though, you just kept thinking, they're a little sloppy early, but, that they would rectify that. And, they got up to double digits, and, you're thinking, well, this is it. They'll just put together one of these kill shot 10-0 runs. They'll be up 20, and they'll clear the benches and all of that. And that never materialized, even though when they got into the second half, you thought, all right, up 13, the Penn State, nice job. Michigan now will be able to pull away from them. And they weren't able to do it. A lot of Dusty May on Monday was asked about where this team could get better, and he talked about rebounding and offensive rebounding. It was Penn State that was hitting the glass and getting second shots and out rebounding Michigan, which gave them the chance. And I think we can all be honest about this. Penn State's not a very good team, and they hung in there and everything else. But if they had some, like their freshman, who's their leading scorer, if they had somebody to knock down some shots and certainly to hit some threes, then Michigan might have one in the loss column. But Penn State really doesn't have that. They were playing shorthanded. They had some guys that really needed to play over their heads, and they had one, but they needed more to pull the upset. And then they had they always say you go for the tie at home when you're down 2, and you go for the win on the road. I don't know if you do that anymore. I think you get something going to the basket, but they just dribbled around outside. The one guy, they threw it to him, and then he just threw up a contested 30-footer. If I'm a Penn State fan, I'm saying, well, what kind of play was that? Michigan played their defense, not on Michigan. They have to. I'm just saying from the other side, I'd be a little frustrated if that's the play that they came up with, and probably not what they really wanted over there. I think we can all agree on that. But, there's going to be games like this. There'll be games like this, I would think, at one point, won them every game, but there's going to be games like this, especially on the road. And Michigan is sitting there 14-0. Can I say that this game winning by 2 and being in a tight one possession game is going to help them out for the rest of the season or moving forward? Because all of this was, the 30-point wins, You knew there was going to be some games, and there's going to be some games. And you start looking at the schedule towards the back half of this month, Nebraska and Michigan State, and certainly in February, it's loaded. There's going to be, with under 5 minutes to go, one possession games where you have to execute. So you get some of that experience. You want to win every game by double digits, but now that you win one, I think it does help them out. I was just saying, I don't subscribe to a loss would be good for them at some point, refocus them. No, this is a game where you can get refocused. This is a game where you can sit in there if you're Dusty May and say, hey, we could have lost that game. That prayer could have been answered by Penn State. We'd be sitting here at 13-1. And hey, that would have been okay. But no, if you can learn your lesson or lessons and stay undefeated, then I think that's the idea. But it was 40-31 at the half, and sloppy play early by Michigan. You could see it, and you want to look for reasons or excuses or whatever. You say the Bryce Jordan Center. You're watching the game and you're saying, "Where's everybody at?" It looked like a couple shots. Could have been showing the footage of the pandemic. So was that a cutout fan? No, okay, they got a couple fans in there. But but that's an excuse. You got to be right. You can't say, "Oh, well, this place, it's got a third of capacity and nobody's making any noise, so we're going to come out a little sluggish." No, it's one of those weird things in sports you see, or it's like, well, how did they come out? Well, they came out sloppy, or they didn't have the jump. Why? I don't know. Why? Yaks was questionable with his calf, but he's going to give it a go. So they were like, and then their best player is sidelined. So did Michigan sit back and say, we've got this one already? It's in their mind, even though Dusty, I'm sure, was telling them, let's get out there right from the jump. And what did Dusty do when Michigan was not, playing their best in the first half? He did try to speed the game up, tried to speed certainly Penn State up with some three-quarter court pressure. He did that a little bit in the second half too, but you had some of those careless turnovers like in the first couple games or all of last year. Roddy Gale Jr., who Dusty talked about on Monday, saying he couldn't imagine that there's a better sixth man in college basketball this year than Roddy Gale Jr. And he's I'd say he's right about that. I don't know about all the teams, but Roddy Gale Jr. has been really good, but he wasn't really good last year, but he looked more like the player last year than he's been this year. He's just, throwing the ball to the other team just inexplicably. And there are a couple guys doing that. And then the one thing, I thought it was interesting that the broadcast crew said there'll be other teams that will really be dissecting this game to try to see what they can do if there's some kryptonite or whatever it is, how Penn State played. And I think what they'll come away with, and this is something that I've watched, is that why Michigan has been so good is they have three bigs where most teams just have one impact front line player. Michigan has three, and they play all three at the same time. And, Mara got pulled really early in this game. I don't know if he was a little sluggish or what. And then there were some times, and he's got free throw issues. It's obvious, he's shooting under 40%. And so he didn't have his game. Morris Johnson Jr., who was the Big Ten Player of the Week, he didn't have a good game. And Yaks, who was okay, but you'd expect Yaks to be better than okay when you're thinking, hey, Player of the Year, lottery pick. He didn't play like that either. So all three of Michigan's impact big men, Mara had a little bit of a spurt there late where it was all him. It was quite a sequence if you go through it, and I was tracking it. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about that coming up. And Yaks had a couple sequences. It was like, all right, that's Yaks. But Morris Johnson Jr. never had it going. I don't know if we'll get another game where those three are going to be less than you would expect. And for Johnson Jr., that was his worst game all the way across. Mara just had a few bright spots. And then, Yaks, you're expecting a lot more when it comes down to it when you're talking about Yaxel Lindenborg. We'll take some of your feedback as we always do on this post-game show. We've got the schedule. We'll give you our player of the game. It was difficult for me. It took me a minute. I looked through it. I thought about it, looked at my notes, and I came up with our Maize and Blue Review player of the game. We'll see if you agree. Penn State had its chances in this game. The 4 or 5 fans, as they walk out, had to say, man, we really had a shot to win this one. And, they were right. They did have their opportunities. So before we look at the box score and get to that upcoming schedule and some of the other numbers, let's announce our Maize and Blue Review player of the game. And it is Elliot Cadeau, who you could say, what? He threw one away late. He almost cost the team the game. True enough. But he also, I thought, in a back-to-back type with under 5 minutes to go, or right around the 5 minutes, he got fouled and he stepped up to the line and made 2 free throws. And then the next time down, he shook his man and got a layup. 4 points, 4 big points for Michigan with under 5 to play. And yeah, he wasn't great. 9 points, 2 boards, an assist, had that, turnover late, threw up an air ball late too. Now that I'm thinking about it, but that's the kind of game it was. And Michigan survived, and I'll give Cadeau that Maize and Blue Review player of the game. Now, let's look all the way through at what might jump out in terms of the numbers. That's going to be too small for people to, if they're watching this and want to look at the box score. Let's see if we can get, oh yeah, there we go. That's it. Mari Burnett. I liked Mari Burnett in a lot of this game, what I saw from him, and then I didn't see much of him late, but it wasn't really him shooting from downtown, although he made 2. He was 5 of 7 from the floor for 12 points. He had a nice twisting drive. Overall, I liked Mari Burnett's game with 12 points. Here's Yak's 10 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. The first play of the game, he scored on a driving layup, and I looked at him, and I don't know if he was wincing, or I just thought, because I wondered if he is not coming off a calf, let's say, strain or whatever it was, issue, calf issue that had him questionable for this game. Would I have thought anything of it? I don't know. Later on, he went to the floor hard, where he was going for an and one. And then again, I saw a little bit of a wince from him, and I thought, maybe I'm just, guys get hit. He's fine. But I think a lot of people do that when it comes down to him. But I was thinking that. But, overall, look at that, 4 of 4 free throws, and he didn't have any turnovers and had that block at 27 minutes. But you expect more. I expect more from Yak. So we've been over Cadeau's game, the 3 turnovers. And then Mara's a pretty interesting player, 7 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, and 2 of 5 from the floor, 3 of 6 from the free throw line. But when it came down to it, he missed 2 of those misses that he had were front ends of 1-and-1s. And, that's, maybe you should put, you feel like put an asterisk, certainly mentioning that if you watch this, that was not good for him. It was a 3-point game with around just over 5 minutes to go. And they threw a lob up to Mara, and he threw it down over the back of his head. And it was like, wow, that's impressive. It made it a 5-point game. Michigan got the ball after a Penn State miss. They went right back down to Mara, and he had a sweet right-hand hook from the right side. He just missed it. And you say, oh, okay, that's tough. They went right back to him again 3 straight times, and then they drew the foul. But then he missed the front end of the one-on-one. But then he had a block. So it was a nice sequence, but you got to make some free throws. He has to start doing a better job at the free throw line when you're talking about Ade Mara. Dusty May talked about and was asked specifically about Mara's free throw shooting on Monday, and Dusty said, he puts him in the pressure situations in practice, and he's making them. He's texting back and forth with Mara. after they put him in these high pressure situations in practice where he said he hit 7 out of 8. And Mara, texted Dusty, I got to do better in the games. And Dusty's like, he's thinking too much. He is thinking too much about it. That's it, because he's got good form. But the last 2 games, it's just more, they look like he's missing them worse, badly. And so, they'll continue to work at that. Whatever you do, don't mention it at all. Mention it. Keep working at it, whatever. But he's got to do better. And then, like I said, I don't think you're going to get another game where you get Morez Johnson Jr. with just 3 points and getting fouled out. He wasn't there for Michigan. Not something that you're used to seeing. LJ Kason was fantastic in the first half. He tied his career high in points with 14, but then it was Magician in the second half. And you can say Dusty should have played him. I get that. Trey McKinney, he had a few. Trey McKinney's awesome. I think he played 24 minutes. I was just going to say maybe you could play him more, but heck, there's a lot of guys. But he's a 5 of 7. He looked good. He made it, making a 3, made 2 of 4 threes, and he's driving down the lane, contorting his body, kind of a right hand hook in the lane as he was falling away. That was a pretty sweet shot. And he's nice. Gale looked more like he did last year than he did this year. Cheddar looked like he was wearing cement shoes. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen Cheddar. He was picking up fouls. He was throwing up air balls. It's hitting the side of the glass. Bad game for Cheddar. And I always say, hey, give me 10 Cheddars. Let's see how you do. Michigan would have lost if it had 10 Cheddars tonight. But that's it with the box score. Let's see if did we get the team numbers on here? I don't know. Spine specialist says do this. I can read those off. Because the rebounding in this game, that's what kept Penn State in it. Michigan got out rebounded by 5. And Penn State was working it on the glass. But neither team, Michigan 30% from downtown, Penn State 27% from downtown. This game reads like and felt like a loss. And yet it was a win. That's my takeaway. Good night, everybody. Let's take some of the feedback. Here is, we get right into it. And for that, we go to Under Par, who says, now we can all stop the talk about 40-0. If that was against a real team, they lose by double digits. That's right. I don't know who has, you're saying, all the talk about 40-0. There are going to be conversations every year when you have an undefeated team. It comes up. But then you have a team, you have to admit Michigan has been putting out very crooked numbers, amazing numbers. The analytics are off the charts. I mean, that's why you're talking about it. I had a friend today who texted me, and he was going to put money on an undefeated. And he said, what do you think? And I said, look at Nebraska 2 times against Michigan State, at Purdue, Duke. I said, they'll probably lose 2 out of the 5. And I think that would be, I'm not, that sounds reasonable to me. I'm Mr. Reasonable. And instead of him being like, yeah, you're right, he said, I'm betting it. I'm like, okay, do whatever you want. I don't know why you're texting me and asking me if I think they're going undefeated, and I tell you those 5 games is going to be tough. And that's, let alone you're not getting into the, the Big Ten tournament where you got to go back to back to back, and then the NCAA tournament, which is where it's all, on the line. But no, I don't think, 40-0. I'm not every game sitting around. I have not. Oh, wait a second. I was going to say I have not. I had thought about asking Dusty about going undefeated, and yet here I was on Monday. I didn't ask him about going undefeated, but I asked him about if it was a goal to be the last remaining, because there's 6 teams that are undefeated. Do they talk about being the last team standing that's undefeated? And also, do they want to get that number 1 overall ranking as they're behind Arizona? I would be like with you. I would have. I'm sure he was expecting it because he even produced an answer of we'll be fine with being undefeated if we get a win against Penn State. They're just focusing on the one game. Of course, that's what he's going to say. What's he going to say? Yeah, we're thinking we're going to do something no team's done in 50 years. No, you don't say that as a head coach. He also said that different guys, of course, they're hearing about it, but that you can take it where some of the guys feel like they're hunting Arizona. They're not the hunted. And that could be a little bit of a motivating factor. And so, yeah, you take motivating factors wherever you can get it. Rick said it was a really good game. Penn State was without their top scorer. It's good to have those games. Show you can have heart and can win on the road. That's right. That's it. That's the takeaway. That's it, Rick. You're on top of it. I'm with you on that. Dom saying Michigan will definitely lose 2 this year. Duke, MSU, maybe Illinois or Purdue. Oh, those are the tough games. Yeah, I should have mentioned Illinois in there too. Derek said a brutal watch. Yeah, Penn State, I would put Penn State and Northwestern overall in all of my years. You tune in, hey, the Bryce Jordan Center. Or you go to Northwestern and, it looks like a high school gym, although I think they have a new gym, but it's still, and they've put together, some decent teams here and there. But those 2 teams, it's kind of like, whoa. It's going to be like that. And that's what I think that team going out there, even though, they know they got to stay hungry and take it one game, but they get out there and, they walk out there and nobody's in the stands and they're like, let's just get this one over with. But that's it. Derek says, stop falling in love with the 3. Yeah, I don't know if they fall in love with the 3. That doesn't seem to be a problem. I thought that they had, again, I'll go through their front line, Mara and Yaks and Juarez Johnson. I doubt that they're going to play that poorly again anytime this year. And then you start looking, they've been through Cheddar. Gale didn't play well. So, there's 3, 4, 5 you're going through. Burnett was okay. Cadeau, player of the game. Again, this was one where it felt like it was going to be a loss, and then here they are, and I think it feels like a loss to them. It feels like a loss to me. And then I'll have to wake up tomorrow and be like, wait a second, they won the game. What's going on? Right, Derek? Derek says he likes the way Scar calls me Denny. There's only not many people call me Denny. That's it. Scar, my niece, my daughter, that's about it. They all look like they forgot to wake up today. Here's one I've been waiting for. Big Farm says up 15. The refs decided it was time to call every hand check. Well, I got news for you. I have never watched a Michigan game where people aren't complaining about the refs. So I sign up at the beginning of the game where there's going to be 5 to 10 calls that are going to be really questionable, and you wonder, if they got the B or C team out there and they can affect the game, and it's like that. So I work at just staying away from all of that. And what happens is, if you become obsessed with it, because there's going to be a lot of bad calls, and if you're like, this is a ref show, what happens is it just plays on your mind, and you think that the refs are out to get you. You think, you start thinking like, they're trying to pay Michigan back for Stallion. All kinds of things, enter your mind. So the best way to do it is just understand that there's going to be some bad calls, and that there's going to be bad calls all the time like that. So that's it. I don't know why 1 assist. It seemed like you'd have had some more. Chris says Elliott is mid at best and borderline stinks. Now, Chris, this is this is mid feedback, because Cadeau has been fantastic this year. Cadeau has been a revelation. Cadeau has been great on the defensive end. He is the quarterback of this team. Now, there were a few plays that stunk tonight. And yet, if you can't stand up, you must have missed the part where Michigan was struggling a little bit, and it got down to like 2-3 point game, and Cadeau got fouled, and he knocked 2 free throws down when his big man was missing the front end of one-on-ones. You must have missed that part. And then the next time down, he came up, ran the floor, took it to the hole, and got a layup, 4 points, and put Michigan and got back that cushion. And a lot of the reason that they won this game and stayed undefeated. I appreciate the feedback, but this is a mid post. Kason was the player of the game at the half, but I got news for you, Chris. Kason was a 0 in the second half. So as much as I like Kason, and he deserves the plaudits and everything, and pat him on the back for what he did the first half, you only watched half of the game. That's okay. I don't mind if you just watch half of the game. I don't mind. I enjoy the feedback. I should probably just be nicer. I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with this. So that's it when it comes down to it. Come on. Chris says Yax is hurt. Hello. No, he's not. No, he's not hurt. Hello. You're telling me that they're going to play Yaxel Lendenborg at Penn State when he's hurt? That would be dumb. So you just have it in your mind that he's hurt. Now, this is legitimate criticism. This Chris K, is legitimate criticism, because Cheddar is my favorite player. So I've got to wear that, and I have to take that. And, he was pretty, I'll use your, he was mid or worse tonight. But here's M Go Blue. Wait for it. 1324. Formerly 1234. He's keeping us on our toes. He says this team is not the same when Yax is hurt. Not sure why he played today. Well, look, I just went through it. I watched him like everyone else. There were 2 times where I thought, one was the first play, where then I looked at him, and I'm looking at his facial expression, and I thought, like you, why would he be on, like Chris? Why would he be out there? Why would you play Yax? But then the rest of the game, you tell me, but besides the one where he had the and one, and he hit the ground hard, that could have been something completely different than the calf, right? So you take those 2 plays out. I'm watching him every time. He's ripping the rebound down. He's bringing it up. He's driving to the hole. He looked 100% fine. So it's in your head. It's in my head too, but it's in our heads. When you're starting to talk about, when you are starting to talk about, let's put a guy on the bench who goes through all the protocols, and you know that they're playing Penn State and you can win the game without him, and yet you still get the clearance and put him out there. You have to, as a fan, say, I am going to trust Dusty, Yaks, and the training staff. I'm not going to trust Michigan Go Blue 1324, even though he's one of my favorites. What are we doing here? Don says he feels like this game revealed Michigan's weakness. Foul shooting. And dependence upon the three big men. When the three don't play well or are injured, there we are again, Michigan is very beatable. Well, yeah. Take if Michigan's front line is less than, and they're not shooting good from the stripe, they're very beatable. I'm with you. Can't play in front of 500 fans. All right. Underwood Redemption Tour. Ooh. I can't wait to get to that tomorrow. Because I did not jump in into the deep end with 2 feet with Whittingham, and this is going to be awesome. But the big thing for me was last week, I said, let's wait till this week and let's see if Underwood and Marsh and others come back, and they're coming back. So, so you're not talking about football. Not worried the streak couldn't have lasted forever. Yeah, that's right. This is a good point here. You know, if you're thinking, if we're all asking ourselves, is Michigan going to lose a game this year? And are you saying no? All right, or you're just saying they can only lose to Nebraska or Michigan State or Illinois or Purdue or Duke. They can't lose any of the other games. Not out on the West Coast. Certainly not to a short-handed Penn State at the Bryce Jordan Center. But that's this game works. That seems pretty cliche. You're gonna have nights like this on the road to the Big Ten, even at Penn State. It does sound a little cliche-ish. Chris K is probably going to jump on me for that. And, again, I'll have to wear it. Take some Pepto. BK says Michigan is number 1. Don't care. We would beat Arizona by double digits. Well, that's the spirit. There's nothing wrong with sticking your chest out and feeling like that. Cadeau with only 1 assist and 1 of 5 from downtown. He needs to be a point guard, not a scorer. Yeah. I think he needs to. His 3-point shot has been, I don't know how many 1 of 5s he's had this year. He's shot really well from downtown. It looks really good. It comes off of his hand. I can see it. Hey, that's a good looking shot. The last one that he took as an air ball, that wasn't a very good shot. Didn't look very good, but point guard, scorer, there's a little bit of truth to that. But you want a guy, if they're leaving him open, is that you want 5 guys that can, if you leave them open from 3-point range, can knock it down. And yeah, Morris Johnson Jr. and Mara, all right. But everybody else? Everyone else, you could say, hey, MJJ can shoot a 3. Everyone else on that team can shoot a 3, including Cadeau. Vin says Michigan would not have played this bad against a good team. they took Penn State lightly. Yeah, I think it's hard not to take them lightly. I can remember playing pickup back in the day. You'd finally play against you'd go to the number one court. These guys are a step up, but you get out there in the first 3 or 4 minutes, and you might score 3 or 4 points, and you might be up 3 or 4 points, and you think you're winded, but you think, man, we can play with these guys. And these guys are just toying with you, and they just hit the gas, whatever they want. Boom! They zip right past you. That's ball. Now it's the coach's job to work that out of them and everything. This is a good thing to remember. They did get the win. Dom says, thanks for reading my post. Hope they never wear those black uniforms again. I found it interesting when they put the graphic up. Penn State, white, Michigan, Navy, it said. Like, Navy? Who's writing these? Michigan beats anybody in the country if they play their A game. I buy that. Other than the main two lower sections facing the half court line, every other section looked like it had two people. It looked like a monster. It looked bad. It really did. Let's go through some of the numbers that I put out there for all you people. I looked up the Ken Pom numbers, and Michigan was 4 in their offensive rating, and they went up to 5. They're still number 1. Ken Pom still number 2 in the country, and they are still undefeated. These are spectacular numbers, and it looked pretty good. The NCAA evaluation tool net, Michigan is number 1 in net. That's what they use. They would be the number 1 overall seed, even though Arizona, we say if the season ended today, we got a long way to go. I don't know why I would say that. We'll check the upcoming schedule, and that is brought to you by the show you are watching or the feed you are listening to right now, the Maize and Blue Review. It's past Christmas, but you have the coaching staff, and you have the transfer portal, and how everything's being put together by Kyle Whittingham and company. And now you have this Michigan basketball team. Oh, yeah, the women's basketball team, hockey, they're going. Great guns. So why not give yourself or that Michigan fan in your life the gift of the Maize and Blue Review? You get 50% off right now, the Ultimate Fan Bundle. You get the Maize and Blue Review, plus you get On 3, plus you get Rivals. That combination, that bundle, plus as a bonus, you get included a complimentary year of The Athletic. Go to on3.com and hit the subscribe button. We'd love to see you over there. We'd love to see you over there on the Den talking football, basketball, and everything else. I jazzed up my my schedule graphic. I hope you like it. It was a little plain. It needed some color. And I got it. So next game is coming up this Saturday. It works out great if you're a football fan, and you are. But look at this. How are these upcoming days looking? Let me just lay my week out for you. I haven't really got a great plan for tomorrow night. I'm busy during the day, but Thursday we got a college football semifinal. Friday we got a college football semifinal. Saturday we got Michigan at 1:00. We've got an NFL game at 4:30. We got an NFL game, playoff game, wild card game at 8:00. Sunday, 3 wild card games. Monday, 1 wild card game. Wednesday of next week, 10:30 tip in Seattle at Washington. I just want to remind everyone, if you're watching this saying, I'm not going to be up at 1:00 in the morning watching this show. Well, when you do wake up, know that it'll be here for you. And you can watch it in all of its glory, or you can listen back wherever you get your podcast. You should subscribe to all of that so you know what's happening. You get right in there. At Oregon, Indiana, they're not worried about this basketball game. They're worried about football. Ohio State. That's weird about Ohio State. A lot of things. Ohio State this year captured their number one goal, and that is to beat Michigan. And I'm not trying to be, just some Michigan prick or something. I even had to go back and check after the game this year. I was in that post-game locker room where Ryan Day was, and Ryan Day said, we achieved our number one goal. Our number one goal is beating Michigan. He's happy. Of course, they beat that. They still had the playoffs in front of them. And I thought, wow, if I'm a football coach and I'm trying to play for a championship, I get you have a lot of goals. But am I stating that my number one goal is to beat Michigan? If your number one goal is to beat Michigan and you achieved it, all of that talk from the year before where they lost to Michigan and then won the national championship, and Michigan fans were like, yeah, but you didn't beat Michigan. Nice national championship, but you didn't beat Michigan. And, they had to feel like, yeah, you know what? This is a hollow national championship. They beat Michigan. They achieved their number one goal. You know what the number one goal for the Michigan basketball team is this year? To cut down the nets on Monday, April the 6th. Number one goal. That's what it is. To be playing on that Monday night and to win it all. It's not just to beat Michigan State twice. Oh, that's nice. It's a sub goal. List of goals. You put that one up at the top. All of the other things they're just nice. It would be nice if Michigan ended up being number one over Arizona at some point over the next week or two. It would be nice if Michigan swept Michigan State this year. It'd be nice if they beat Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska. It would be nice if they were undefeated and played the Duke on February the 21st and beat them. It would be nice if they won the Big Ten tournament. It would be sweet if they were of course, they go undefeated. They'll be the regular season Big Ten champs and then be the number one overall seed, have the greatest Ken Pom ranking ever. I mean, those are all great things, but I would trade all of that for the number one goal, which is to cut down the nets and win the national championship. Yeah, we're processing it. This law. That's right. Thank you, Don. Ooh. Pistons tomorrow night. Thank you. Look at that. Cade was awesome the other night. I saw a great video of Jalen sitting at midcourt, and it was Cade went through the series of dribbles and step back baseline jumper, and then Rose was out on the court mimicking him, and then was doing the I don't know what you're whipping up in the pot, whatever they do to whip up the pot or the mixture, whatever you're going to be doing with that mixture. That's true. Football is different. I know it's accurate. Calling me a goof. I'll take it. All right, that's going to do it. My final thoughts on this game are that this is good for Michigan. They're not going to win every game by 30. And all of these games this year, I have really been there's the TCU game and Wake Forest. People were upset that game, went in overtime. Michigan should have been playing in Ann Arbor. They escaped with a win. Like people weren't happy about it. All right, you wanted to blow. They go to TCU, and again, it was on the road, and they win that one, but it was close. It's like they got to win by more. Well, then they listened to everybody, and they just started, smashing everyone. And then they did what they did in Vegas. I'd never seen anything like that. It was just so early where the games are over at halftime. They're up by 20 or 30 at half. And so this is over. They're up by 50 every game. And then it's really just continued. They have been, it seems like, up by 50 every game. They're winning by 30. And then you just get, it's never happened. I've never even seen it. Most games are tied at the half. Even when you're good, even when you're the number one team in the country, you might be up 5 or you're not. They're up by 9 at the half tonight. I thought they were still going to win by 30, even though it was sloppy turnovers. It wouldn't have surprised me because every other game, that's how it's gone, except those first couple, or the game 2 and game 3, because they did blow out Oakland. But there are going to be nights like this. And when you can survive and win a game like this, it's not more impressive than winning a game by 30 like they did against USC. But when you can win a game when it was ugly and you really didn't like anything that went on out there and you didn't like the officials and the crowd sucked and you walk out with your head down and then Dusty comes in and says, hey, we won the ball game. Let's see. Get those heads up. It's all right. Michigan's 14-0. They'll play again on Saturday. Somebody else mentioning the black uniforms. They've played with those uniforms before. Maybe they need to shelve the dark navy blue or whatever they were on them. Shelve those. I got it. We will we'll talk with you after the game on Saturday. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll be right here on this very channel that you're watching or listening to right now. We'll be live. So we will see you then. Everybody have a great night. Tonight, Michigan wins the game to move to 14-0 on the season. 74-72 over Purdue. Thanks for watching and have a great night.